The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Department of Family and Support Services Youth Enrichment Year-Round Program RFP for potential applicants. It's an RFP webinar, in fact. I am happy if you have joined us this morning. Welcome back. If you are new to this webinar, kind of webinar Friday, if you will, it's not quite as much fun as Black Friday, but it's getting there. Thank you for joining us. Today, I will be joined with Maria Guzman-Rocha, who is our Director of Enrichment, and Karen Nolan, our Youth Service Coordinator. They will be presenting about the RFP opportunity here. We will then break for questions, and then I will follow up with some scintillating information about how to make an application into the e-procurement system. Just so you know, due to the volume of participants, everyone has been placed on mute. Please submit questions via the question box, and we will respond to the questions after going through the programmatic aspects of the slides. And then afterwards, after I'm done with the little dog and pony about e-procurement, we'll have more questions as well. Use our question box if you're having any kind of technical issues that need to be resolved. And let's kind of get going. Just so that you know, this webinar is being recorded. That recording will be translated later on today and early tomorrow and posted on the Dfss YouTube channel. Who knew that we had one, but we do. A link to that will be, the link to the YouTube channel posting of this webinar will be on the Dfss website underneath the information about this particular RFP, which is the Youth Services Enrichment Year-Round Programming. So you'll click on that if you want to revisit the glory that will be this webinar. At this point, I'm going to turn the agenda and the presentation over to my so very capable colleagues in the Youth Division so that they can tell you about this amazing and fascinating program.
Thank you, Julia. As Julia mentioned, hello everyone, my name is Maria Guzman-Rocha. I am the Director of the Enrichment Portfolio here in the Youth Services Division at the Department of Family and Support Services. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot of information to share with you all. So we're going to get started. We have the agenda up on the screen. We'll do some introductions, go through the purpose of the RFP and a little bit of background. And the most time will be spent on program requirements, performance, goals and outcomes, some guidance for respondents. So you'll be able to see some of the information that we've shared in the RFP around how folks will get selected, how agencies will get selected. We'll go through the specific selection criteria, basis of award, the timeline, when applications are due, when you can submit questions, and then Julia will go through her scintillating part of technical assistance for applicants in the e-procurement system. So before we dive in, for those of you who are familiar with our enrichment portfolio and our enrichment programming, we're doing things a little bit differently in this RFP round. So you'll see here that we actually will be releasing 5 RFPs this year, and we have broken RFPs out into program models, which is why you saw 2 invitations. For those of you who received this, saw 2 invitations to webinars today. We did the school year webinar this morning, and we are now kicking off the year-round webinar. Both RFPs were released on the same day and will be due on the same day, but there are differences in the requirements programmatically, so we'll go through those today. And then we'll be releasing a CHA year-round RFP this summer. Very soon, an enrichment summer and a CHA summer RFP in the fall for programming that will begin, contracts that will begin in April and programming that happens next summer. All right, so let's get into the information about the year-round program RFP. And as you can see here, some of the slides will be a little bit text heavy, so we're going to try to pull out the key information and the most critical components of the RFP themselves. But I strongly advise you to read the RFP. We put a lot of information in there that will be helpful for you to apply to this program and that will answer a lot of the questions that may come up as you respond to the application questions themselves. So just to get into it here, we are seeking to provide funding for delegates to implement safe, supportive, interactive, and engaging youth development activities, primarily for youth who are underrepresented in our community areas, such as individuals with disabilities, those attending low-performing elementary or high schools, English language learners, those who are experiencing homelessness or unstably housed, and individuals placed in the foster care system. So we want to make sure that we are all on the same page with this notion that year-round or enrichment programming, pardon me, we want to see an impact in these programs, right? We want programming that leads young people to feeling safe and supported by trained practitioners, program staff, youth coordinators, whatever you decide to call them. Programming that builds and reinforces social, emotional, and cognitive skills, that develops positive relationships and belonging with peers and adults, and provides leadership opportunities. In these times we are living, it is extremely critical to support our young people, especially those who are underserved. And we are seeking to enact these policies and practices to engage these young people, to really change the odds of the times that we're living and the communities, the issues that the communities that we are living in are facing. I believe I'm going to be preaching to the choir with this information, but just so that we're all on the same understanding, out-of-school time programs have really been shown to foster better outcomes and prevent negative outcomes. So one of the things that we want to highlight and make note of is that participation in out-of-school time programs has been shown to benefit young people in many ways, including a more positive self-concept, better problem solving and decision making, more interpersonal skills, et cetera, et cetera. You all can see and read what these are. But not only that, but it can also counteract some of the negative environmental factors that young people are facing. And it has been shown that participation in out-of-school time programming can lower rates of substance abuse, lead to fewer problem behaviors, and improved performance in school. And so it's critical that the programs that we establish support the goals for healthy development and also violence prevention. We all live in the city of Chicago and are aware of what some of the challenges and issues are, particularly for those young people in underserved communities. And so we want to ensure that the programs that we are funding have this in the forefront and that they are being really intentional about the activities that they are designing and the programming that is happening for young people. So just to share a little bit around what the program currently looks like and some of the priorities for improvement. In the 2020 RFP, we integrated several best practices in youth development, including integrating youth voice and ensuring that programs were operating for a certain amount of time, which we call program dosage. And so we want to continue building upon those. Currently, in 2021, Dfss funded 9,685 youth slots to enrichment programs that served over 17,000 youth ages 6 to 21. Many of our programs were serving more young people than they had slots for, which is tremendously impactful in these community areas. Out of 925 youth that were surveyed in the summer of 2021, many reported positive experiences, including having a positive relationship with an adult in the program, feeling more hopeful about the future, which in these times is super critical, and the program helping to strengthen or build new friendships. Enrichment programs are located currently in 62 of the 77 community areas in 2021, with youth residing across all 77 community areas. So this is just highlighting that the enrichment program serves young people across the city of Chicago. And moving on to priorities for improvement, this is one of the things that I mentioned earlier in terms of building on some of the priorities that we set up in 2020. If you refer to pages 7 to 9 of the RFP, you'll see more extensive detail about these priorities, but I do want to go through them one by one. So we want to make sure that programs are prioritizing, or that we are prioritizing the enrollment of underserved youth and ensuring appropriate support and services. That programming is fostering positive youth development through accessible and equitable approaches. A lot of times programs are not accessible to young people. And so the agencies that apply for this really have to keep that in mind in ensuring that those young people that are not attending programs have access to the programs that are being implemented. That program design continues to be more aligned with research in positive youth development and out of school time programming. There is a lot of research out there, and most of it has been incorporated into this RFP around what it means to have good youth programs, what sound youth programs, what programs that make an impact are. And that is, again, outlined in detail in the RFP. We want to make sure that programming is focused and that it's developmentally appropriate to young people based on their needs. So if you are serving young kids ages 6 to 10, their activities are going to look different than those activities for young people ages 18 to 21. That should be understood, but we want to make sure that that is actually happening. And so the application will ask questions around that. And then finally, prioritizing continuous improvement, focusing on using data to make programmatic decisions. Decisions should be made with youth voice and not haphazardly or anecdotally. We want to make sure that that is really, really intentional. So the target population that we're looking to serve for the Enrichment Year-Round Program is outlined in the second bullet point, but just generally, we intend to serve 3,270 youth from the city of Chicago. Eligibility for the program is restricted to youth who are Chicago residents between the ages of 6 to 21 and who have a signed consent form from a parent or guardian on file for youth under the age of 18. This is pretty standard for all of our programs across our youth division, so this should hopefully not surprise anyone. At least 50% of program participants must identify with at least one of the following underrepresented communities or populations as described below. And you can see what this looks like here. There is additional information on page 9 of the RFP about each of these, but this is what we mean when we want to ensure that underrepresented populations are being targeted and included for these programs. So next, you'll see program requirements specifically for the year-round program. In the enrichment programs, we talk about rate per youth. And so the rate per youth has not changed from prior RFP or the prior RFP. We are looking at $1,800 per youth. As I mentioned, funding a total of 3,270 slots across the city of Chicago. And we are looking for a staff to youth ratio of 2 to 30. And that, I'll get into that in a second, but this means that we are asking programs to propose a minimum of 30 youth served for the Enrichment Year-Round Program with increments of 15. So if you are proposing to serve 30 youth, and then maybe you can serve a few more, you have to add 15 to that and then 15 to that, et cetera, but with a minimum of 30. Program dosage and frequency, again, something very specific to the year-round program. We're looking for programs to offer a minimum of 360 hours of programming a year, and that means approximately 8 hours a week for 45 weeks. Programs must offer programming during school breaks, such as spring break, winter break, and summer break. And then hours may include evenings and weekends. And youth need to participate at least 288 hours a year. And so next we'll talk about programming requirements across the board. So these are for all of our programs under the enrichment portfolio. We're looking for agencies to inform us of what age groups they are serving. So like I mentioned earlier, this is really important to ensure that we are providing developmentally appropriate programming for young people. And you may select multiple age groups, but we need to know what those look like. I went through the staff and youth ratio and the program recruitment already. So now I'll talk a little bit about program specialty areas. So most of the programming that happens in out of school time will fit one of these categories. So each applicant is asked to select one of these categories, but you may implement programming in other areas. We're not restricting that if you select arts, culture, and music, you can't do STEM programming. That's totally fine, but the majority of your focus should be in one of these program specialty areas. And then the program components are really what I've mentioned before. This is the part where you get to be flexible in the kind of programming that you do, the curriculum that you implement, but research shows that there are best practices in youth development that should be applied to all youth programs out there. And these are the program components: creating safe and supportive spaces for youth, fostering positive connections with caring adults, fostering youth voice and agency in program decision-making, designing activities and implementing them using sequenced, active, focused, and explicit elements. If you are not familiar with that, you should become familiar with that. There's tons of stuff online that you can find on that. Consistent and intentional staff onboarding and training opportunities. Without this, our staff are not able to direct the young people in the way that we want to see in really great youth programs. And then consistent and intentional opportunities for parent, family, and community engagement. Respondents, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Karen Nolan. I was jumping ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Nolan. I'm the Youth Service Coordinator here for the Enrichment portfolio, and I'm going to pick up the program requirements where we left off. So as we were discussing, respondents will recruit, hire, and manage program staff using 1 to 15 staff ratio.
Excuse me, Karen, could you try to get a little closer to the microphone? It's hard to hear you.
Down in the office, so we're tag teaming today.
Yeah, so we could hear Maria, but Karen sounded like she was underwater.
Okay, I'm back. I've got my head out of the water.
Oh, awesome. Yay.
All right, and so with these requirements, as we move on, we just want you to really read through these and take a look at some of the duties that may also include administrative functions, such as data entry and data collection. Preference will be given to agencies who hire staff with experience in youth development, youth education, and or out of school time, and those who come from the communities in which the program is located. So I just want to circle back a little bit and highlight the area of positive youth development. That is one of the best practices that we are looking for in agencies moving forward. We would love to see more of that. Positive youth development is a specific thing. And as Maria mentioned before, there's information online about that. And we're hoping that as you apply, you consider that in moving forward with your programs. Prior to the program start date, staff must complete a whole list of certifying information for background checks. And I just want to pause here because we all know that there is a really lengthy process involved with some of these certifications. So we do need to have those in place before new staff can work with young people directly. So if you are hiring new staff, make sure that you are allowing enough time for all of the certifications to be completed and make sure that process has already started prior to the beginning of your program. All documentation must be current and entered in the database system for verification prior to the program start. As I mentioned, staff and volunteers cannot work with you until those background checks are completed. And that's why we really emphasize that this process starts before. I want to say way before, but it depends on how the hiring process works for your agency. Program staff will be required to participate in Dfss sponsored professional learning meetings. And again, I would like to highlight this area here because not only are we sharing relevant information that we hear from as we speak with different agencies across the board. But we're also attempting to provide you with resources and solutions to some of those issues. This is also a very cool opportunity for agencies that have been funded to communicate with each other across their different communities. So this is not just a hard, fast rule, but something that allows your agencies to grow. You can see staff professional development is included in the discussions, support around general data, and just more information on how to interact more in a smoother manner for the training on City of Chicago processes and procedures. Programmatic changes, written procedures, closeout. These are categories that will be really important as you are finding out once you're funded. But just to highlight one quick thing, programmatic changes, make sure if you are funded and there is a sudden change or a new hire that may not have been expected, make sure that information is forwarded to us in a timely manner so that we have a consistent communication with your agency. Performance goals and outcomes. So this section highlights what data points we are observing right now. Now, this doesn't mean that these are the only ones that your agency has to consider, but these are what we're looking for in this period of time. They may expand, they may change in the future, but these are really important for us right now. And so we have highlighted them in the RFP for this term. And so also I want to add, if your agency includes different outcome measures or different goals, please include that in your responses so that we can see how your agency is moving in a current rhythm with us and the general out of school time population. Okay, so guidance for respondents here. I just want to highlight that this is a really special area because it is different from past RFPs. Generally, in the years prior to this, we were looking at specific community areas, but with this, we are looking at Healthy Chicago equity zones. And that is amazing because it offers the opportunity for agencies to recruit larger amounts of young people. And so there are 6 specific Healthy Chicago equity zones: North Central, Northwest, West, Far South, and Near South. And so we also have that broken out in colors for you. And so now, instead of just trying to recruit in one community area, your brushstroke can include that whole zone, that whole equity zone as shown here and also broken out in this slide. Perfect. So for this slide, just clear information about what the breakout of service provision was for 2021 in those equity zones: Far South, Near South, North Central, Northwest, Southwest, and West. That was for 2021. And next to it is a projected number. So this will give you an opportunity to go in and really do some thoughtful recruitment strategy plan. And so that we can get those numbers to where they need to be, where we would like them to be, and to make it easier for you to recruit. It's more difficult, we have found, for agencies to try to stay within a specific boundary, but for 2023, we are looking for these specific areas, and we're hoping that this makes it a lot easier for you to recruit and retain youth. Now we're moving into the budget proposal section of the RFP. Respondents applying for the year-round enrichment program will budget for a rate of $1,800 per youth with a minimum of 30 youth per program and additional increments of 15 youth. The anticipated cost of a year-round program for the minimum number of 30 youth is $54,000. So this is remarkable. It is really a great guide and baseline for you to go on in planning how you move forward. For new agencies, you can see how many youth you would want to work for that dollar amount. For existing funded agencies, you can see if you would like to take on the challenge of increasing your numbers and getting the additional award amounts. Should respondents apply for more than the minimum 30 youth, they can plan to increase their budget by $27,000 for each additional increment of 15 youth. And again, this table is a great demonstration of that. I don't know about you, but I am a visual learner, so this is very important in helping me to realize the new breakdown. So I'm sure it's going to be helpful for you, because these are the things we look at as we go through the proposals. Budgets or cost proposals. The term of the contract executed under this RFP will be from January 1 through January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2024. Administrative costs will be capped at 15% per application. All respondents must be able to demonstrate a minimum 15% in-kind match. Please submit one budget for 1 year, that 12-month period. Cost category definitions are attached as budget instructions in every RFP. And I just want to put a little personal touch in here. These budgets, they need to make sense. So for example, if your agency chooses to provide programming in the area of arts and education, arts and culture, I'll put it like that, then your program line items should include things like general art supplies, paints, brushes, canvases, things like that. So my underscore for this screen is just to make sure that the budget you're providing makes sense. Be mindful and inclusive of the developing your budgets, apply for your program's actual costs, use the reasonable cost question on the application to discuss how you determine the cost reflected in the budget. Common errors. Fringe, make sure you check your calculation as far as supplies. These are frequently under or over budgeted, and again, make sure they make sense. They're in alignment with the program that you are proposing for us. Make sure your job description titles and your job description uploads have the same title. Also, put a brief description of the job in the budget document itself if you have not discussed it specifically in your application. Again, we want to make sure that all of your titles and your language is in alignment and that we are not confused, and we're all making sure that the descriptions for the jobs are what we are looking for when you include that in your budget. Put your budget in the appropriate columns, show your match, and read the budget instructions carefully. So now we're going to switch to the selection criteria, and Maria is going to come back and start with community involvement.
Great, thank you, Karen, for sharing that. As Karen mentioned, we're going to go through some of the criteria on how agencies will get selected. Another reminder that this information is also in the RFP on pages 20 to 21, as indicated on the upper right-hand corner of this slide. So One of the things that we want to make sure that respondents do is demonstrate a clear understanding of the youth in the equity zone in which they are proposing their program location, including their needs and challenges, as well as their strengths and opportunities. So delegated agencies will need to do some research around the youth that they're intending to serve, and not just sharing what they're struggling with, but also what are some of their strengths and areas of opportunity. We want to make sure that respondents have relevant competencies, capabilities, and or infrastructure needed to provide appropriate services to those young people in that proposed equity zone. That respondents describe how the agency is seeking to be more inclusive in their internal operations, and also how their board reflects and engages the diverse people of the community it serves.
All right, and so we're going to look now at organizational capacity. The respondent should demonstrate that program staffing is sufficient for the level of services proposed. Staff are qualified, culturally competent, and are reflective of the communities they serve. That the respondent have adequate systems and processes to support monitoring program expenditures and fiscal controls. That the respondent has adequate human resource capacity to hire and manage staff.
And this here, again, you can find more on pages 20 to 21 of the RFP. This is the meat of the application, so to speak. This is the information that we want to see in order to determine whether the proposed program should be funded or not. And so to be very clear, we want to make sure that respondents provide a clear connection between their program activities and the outcome goals of the RFP. As Karen mentioned, agencies are able to add in any outcome goals that they deem important, but it's really important that that agencies determine that in general, their activities are aligned with what we're looking for in programs that will be funded through this RFP. The respondents should provide clear and specific descriptions of how the program will incorporate each of the program components as outlined in the RFP. Those are the best practices in youth development that I refer to that are really important and should cut across all youth programs. That the respondent clearly describes how they'll ensure that program activities are developmentally appropriate for the age groups the program proposes to serve. So we need to see that there are differences between the types of activities you're offering. If you're saying that you're serving ages 6 to 21, that's great, but also we need to ensure that the activities that you're designing for the 6 to 10 age group are different than those for the 18 to 21. That respondents clearly outlined how the program will identify, recruit, and retain the youth they're proposing to serve. It's great if we offer, thousands and thousands of one-time opportunities for young people, but through these programs, we want to see that they return day after day and that they find your program engaging and enough. As young people vote with their feet, and the older they get, the less enticing some of these opportunities might be. So we want to make sure that you have a plan on how to keep the young people engaged in your programs, especially for those underserved youth. We want respondents to provide a detailed description of how the proposed program will collaborate with other entities to provide comprehensive services to the youth they serve. So you may be working with other city agencies, other organizations, other contractors or collaborators to ensure that young people have all of the services that they need and can be referred to. And then finally, we want a detailed description of how agencies will gather youth feedback and how it will be incorporated into improving the program. So it's not just to say we are collecting youth surveys and they're going to sit in a box somewhere. What are you doing with those youth surveys? What information are you going to get? And better yet, how can youth be actively participating in that incorporation and in that improvement?
Okay, performance management and outcomes. This is actually one of my favorite sections because this is an opportunity for agencies, the respondent, to shine. You're able to include a lot of information about your current programming. The respondent demonstrates evidence of a strong past performance in the same or similar out-of-school programs against desired outcomes, outcome goals, and performance metrics, and or other notable accomplishments for those ages 6 to 21. The respondent has the relevant systems and processes needed and report performance and program outcomes. Everything is about measurement right now in this period of time. So it would be really great if you can demonstrate how you are currently capturing and tracking your data, your performance outcomes. As the respondent has experience using data to inform and improve its services or practices, and describes a strong desire to engage in continuous improvement processes. To highlight continuous improvement processes, that again is a huge factor for moving forward with the Dfss programming. We are always looking to improve processes. The respondent has the relevant systems and practices needed to collect and store key participant and performance data. And that again is working with your participants and making sure that what they started with is being tracked, that their background history and all their improvements are being reported as well. Great. So in terms of budgeting and costs of the program, what is proposed? Respondents should demonstrate that implementation costs and funding requests are relative to its financial and human resources, and that the proposed budget supports the scope of work or work plan. What you're intending to do should be aligned with how much money you're asking for. That respondents have the fiscal capacity, as demonstrated by their auditing process, to implement the proposed program, and that respondents are leveraging other funds and in-kind contributions to support total program and administrative costs. We'd love to be able to support full programs, but we don't have that capacity right now. So we want to make sure that whatever program you are intending to run can function and function well, not just with the dollars that we would provide, but that there are other funds in place to be able to support the full implementation of the program. And so I am just going to recognize the list of attachments that need to be uploaded into the system along with your responses. It is very important that you look at this list, make sure when you're about to submit your document that you have all of these attachments included. The first one being liability insurance. And with these attachments, I want to circle back and highlight that they should be current in their dates so that when we are able to look at them, they are valid. Program member identification, SAM certification, certificate of good standing, bylaws and articles of incorporation, financial statement or 990 forms, IRS determination letter, program budget forms, City of Chicago compliance acknowledgement, conflict of interest, memorandum of understanding or linkage agreements, and these would be connected to any out of any programming or different agencies you may be working with as a referral or additional needs to support the youth that you serve. Youth coordinator or program leader job description, CPS vendor confirmation or letter of intent from the school principal. So make sure, be sure to attach the reports, the studies, and other documentation that show your performance. Again, this is your opportunity to shine. So this would support all of your information that you are including your reports, your studies, and other documentation. Be sure to attach the resume for key staff that oversee your program. All right, and so we will move to the basis of award. So essentially, this is how we will make recommendations for contract awards. And we will do that within each healthy equity zone, trying to balance program location. So how many programs do we have in an equity zone? The target populations that we shared with you,
age groups, and program specialty areas. All right, so ending this part of the webinar, just wanted to go through the timeline itself. We are in the pre-proposal webinar today. We do have a due date to submit pre-proposal questions. Julia's going to go through this in depth in a minute, but essentially these are opportunities for questions to be answered and published in what we call an amendment to the RFP, and that information will be released. But that date will be June 28th. And then applications are due July 26th at 12 p.m. Julia will emphasize this, but late applications are not accepted. And so if you have not submitted by on that date, then you will have to wait for the next round. And the program period begins January 1st of 2023.
So much, Maria and Karen. We're now going to take a little break to do some questions and answers. So we have a lot of questions in, and then I will follow up with 15 minutes about the fantasticness that is e-procurement and making an application through the e-procurement in the city of Chicago. So just to go kind of whip through some of these, I can confirm that this will be recorded and available. This webinar is being recorded. It's going to be converted and posted on the Dfss YouTube channel. A link to that, along with the a PDF of these PowerPoint slides, will be posted to the Dfss website within the next couple of days. So start looking for that around Monday or Tuesday. It takes us a minute to get this stuff processed and posted. So here we have another question. Can organizations apply for both the year-round and school year RFPs?
Yes, organizations can apply for both types of programs. They are completely separate RFPs.
Yes, so you can apply, and when the summer one comes out, you can apply for that as well. So, what is a reputable company for a background check? We were asked that in the morning. I don't recall offhand what our answer was. We'll make a recommendation in the amendment. Are agencies able to select more than one focus area and age group? And yes, that we did cover that in the discussion of one of the slides. You are able to select, you don't select more than one focus area, but obviously if you are an arts and culture kind of program and you're mixing in some science stuff on occasion. I'm sorry, Maria?
That was my computer. Go ahead.
I thought you had more things to add since I'm basically paraphrasing you. And this also came up in the morning session that you can, as long as you hit that 30 youth benchmark, you can have 20 kids that are 6 to 11 and 10 kids that are the 12 to 14 or whatever I don't know the age groups off the top of my head, unfortunately, but as long as it adds up to that initial 30 and then is loaded in increments of 15 after that initial 30 then threshold has been arranged or met, you are able to really kind of break it up in terms of mix and match so that you're being able to serve all the youth that you get. Do you have out of school hours program this cycle? That's another question.
I understand that question, Julia. If that person can maybe rephrase it.
Watanabe, if you could perhaps provide us a little insight as to what you meant. Let's see, the PowerPoint slides being sent to attendees. They will not be sent to attendees, Mr. Martins. They will be posted on the Dfss website. Is it permissible to serve youth from more than one equity zone?
The program location must be within an equity zone with an intention for recruitment within that and serving youth within that equity zone. But we know that there is high mobility and young people will come from all over the city. And that is okay.
But do they have to make unique applications for each to provide services in each unique equity zone?
Correct. If you intend to serve, to have program locations in different equity zones, then it is different applications.
For agencies with multiple sites and multiple sites within each zone, we have one application per zone, not site. Is that correct? So that's kind of a variation on what we were just talking about.
That is correct.
That is correct. Is there a maximum that an agency can apply for in terms of slots? No. Take them all. Do all the keys. We would be happy about that. Well, share with your other nonprofit friends, but it would be awesome if we could figure out how to get every youth engaged in the city for the summer. Can we use the 10% de minimis?
We will answer that in the amendment.
If an agency has two sites, do they apply as two separate applications like we've done previously, or together? What if they serve in different areas of the community? I think we kind of addressed that in the prior question. If your two sites are in the same equity zone, no, one application. And if they're in two different equity zones, then two applications, correct? Then here is actually my favorite question. Can funds be used for van purchases to transport youth who have safety issues traveling on public transportation? I love the creative thinking.
We appreciate that. That is a no. The programming or the funds are should be used for programming, staffing, et cetera, as outlined in the budget. This is one of those situations that I believe are truly important right now around the safety issues. We are willing to, once delegates get funded, try to address these on a higher level, try to address these issues on a higher level, whether that means collaborating with other agencies or working with sister agencies.
So just to take this one step further, I understand completely that the city is not interested in helping to purchase a van. What about renting or Uber? So say like if I was going to Uber my youth around the city, would that be an allowable cost?
There are specific categories for the budget within budget instructions. So that's something that is outlined in the budget instructions around use of funds for transportation.
So please explain the difference between this program and the Youth Enrichment School Year program.
Question. So the major differences were highlighted during, not called out, but highlighted during this webinar in section A, page 5 of the RFP. There is a table that outlines each of the program models, including the summer program model that will be released. The RFP will be released in fall of 2022. So section A has that information. Section, let me do this really quickly. Page 12 is in section C under program requirements. There is also additional information about how the specific year-round program is, and or school year. They're the same pages in both RFPs. So you'll see that. And then page 17 under section F of application guidance for respondents also has additional information about each of the program models and program model requirements.
So those charts are really quite helpful in giving you a shorthand as to what the programmatic differences are. My organization serves multiple Healthy Chicago equity zones. Some areas/zones have a higher percentage of students than others. Is it best to apply for all areas students reside, or is it best to consider zones where 50% or more of students reside, or another suggested percentage?
So that is a question that I think this organization will have to answer themselves with the, I think the guidance that the organization should be able to provide a program location within that equity zone. And so if they have done their research and they determine one of the locations is better equipped to serve the young people that they want to serve in this RFP, then they should make that determination.
And then here's another great question. This one actually somebody hit my inbox with this question in between the times of the 2 webinars today. Is there funding for stipends for youth as part of this program?
No, this is a program that programs can offer incentives and include incentives as part of their budget. Again, that information is included in the budget instructions once that information is released. But stipends are for the Summer Youth Employment Program or the One Summer Chicago programs right now.
Then here we go is where do people get compliance in the conflict of interest forms? These are actually uploaded. These are accessible on the when you go into the actual e-procurement application. There is a lot of attachments, and those forms are part of the attachments. Can one agency submit multiple applications?
Yes, as long as they are submitting for multiple equity zones.
And with school being out on summer sessions, if an organization doesn't have the CPS vendor certification or letter from the principal, will that prevent them from applying?
So principals are still working, is my understanding. You can reach out to us if you cannot get access to a principal, and we will try to work with you. But generally, principals don't take the summer off. So you should be able to get in touch with someone at the main office in a school if you're intending to work with them.
You have out of school hours program for this cycle. This is the clarification. So this program is for school, is year round. And yes, it isn't for this. I think maybe what they're getting at is that this is not an in-school program. These, even when you're operating on a year-round basis, you're still operating to triage those hours after school or before school. Correct?
Correct.
You also have a summer component.
Correct. So programs should be operating out of school hours, including during breaks and during winter break, spring break, and summer break. Year-round programs are well more comprehensive than our other programming in that they should be operating year-round.
What are examples of incentives?
That is outlined in the budget instructions.
Okay. Can an agency submit? Okay, so then this is another question. Yes, you can submit multiple applications, one per equity zone, but you can submit a year-round, a summer, and a school year if you want. Can you accept funding for both year-round and school year for the same program? Or is that double dipping, assuming your program is not fully funded by one grant? Huh. Okay.
You cannot apply for the same program if you are serving the same youth.
So if I had 60 children and one of them doesn't want to do school year, one of them, they all go away for the summer, and the other ones need summer, they need year-round programming. I could have two programs, but they would have to have 60, and each would have 30 kids, but they would have to be unique children. You can't have 30 kids that you've enrolled in the same program, into two programs.
Yes, this is a variation of a question that was asked earlier this morning about having youth in different programs like enrichment and mentoring, Chicago Youth Service Corps. Young people can be part of different programs, but we need to be mindful about the way that they're being counted. And so in this case, if you want to apply for a school year program within a school, working with a school, and then a summer program at your organization location, you can do that. But a year-round program should be comprehensive enough where it is serving both during the school year and during the summer.
Must the program serve a minimum of 30 youth? Our program serves 20 to 25 homeless, unstably housed youth, and our program has been funded by the city for years. Can we still submit, or are we now ineligible?
Programs must serve a minimum of 30 youth.
Okay. Find 5 more kids. Is the CPS vendor confirmation only for in-school programs?
Yes, that is for programs that are working directly in schools.
Where are programs generally offered at? Schools, community centers?
It varies.
Here we go. My organization historically applied for support for out-of-school time and mentoring. Is this RFP a replacement for what we applied for, or is it an addition? Or would it be called school year only?
So this is the year-round program under Enrichment, supporting out-of-school time programming, enrichment programming, after-school programming. Those terms are synonymous. The mentoring RFP is separate. Mentoring programming is separate and has separate requirements. That will be released later on this summer. So you would have to make a determination what your program fits under now, if you determine that you want to apply for just one of these RFPs.
Let's see, now I lost my question. Up here we go. I started an application in E-Procurement. The conflict of interest in the City of Chicago compliant acknowledgement questions are red. Is that significant? I would love to say that it is significant, Mr. Center, but it is not significant. We put those in red because those are budget office questions, and I guess the budget office felt that they were of particular importance, or perhaps they just like the color red. There is no more significance to it beyond that. So here's somebody who says, oh, we have summer, winter, and spring break programs, not during this, not when school is in session. So they want to know if they can just do break and, like, you know, not in school year. I believe that would mean they should wait for the summer applications to come out, or does the summer application not cover school breaks?
The summer application would be the appropriate one for them to apply to.
Guess about whether it would be easier to be funded for school year or year round. I don't, it depends. That we cannot, we know many things, Mr. Wu, but we cannot look into a crystal ball and tell you that. I think it is easier to fund from where I sit. It is easier to fund a brilliant application. So write a really good application. Can you clarify about the 15% match? Is it literally a match of in-kind, or can it be a cash match? It can be in-kind or cash. I talked about the City of Compliance Acknowledgement Form. There's a state grant for purchasing vans for the person who asked about that. Thank you, Mr. Kipnis. With schools being out on summer session, if an okay, we already talked about getting the letter. If DSSS is using past performance metrics to decide if they will fund the is DFSS using past performance metrics to decide if they will fund the program again? So if you're an existing delegate agency provider, will your past performance come into play in the evaluation of the application?
If you are a provider, you can submit past performance metrics as evidence that your program is a high quality program, and there is a question in the application where you can do that.
Is this strict? Are the schools that you must work with strictly CPS, or can you provide? Can an applicant provide services for charter schools or private schools?
This is a great clarifying question. This is Department of Family and Support Services funding. This is not funding through CPS. They are a sister agency, and we are happy to collaborate with them. But you do not need to provide funding, or you do not need to provide programming with a school. With a CPS school or a charter school or a private school. You can, and you should demonstrate a partnership if you are intending to either partner with them or work within that school in this out of school time space. But you don't have to. You can do community programming within the agency that you're working with. So this is actually a really, really great question in clarifying that we are not funded through CPS. This is DFSS funding. And so we don't require that agencies have to work with a school.
There is another awesome question, which is, is this program only for in-school students? So can you enroll people who are perhaps not in school for whatever reason?
Yes, this is programming for ages 6 to 21. And so if your program wants to implement something for young people ages 18 to 21 and you have a very targeted population, you may do that. They don't need to be in school necessarily. And so, it's all about really understanding your community area and the young people that you're trying to recruit and the focus of your programming itself.
Can you explain the organizational structure of DFSS and where CYSC, OSC, enrichment opportunities, out-of-school time programs, mentoring all fit in? What are the programs we should be following to stay aware of the different funding opportunities? So I will address, if you want to stay aware of the different funding opportunities that DFSS offers, I suggest that you routinely check the DFSS website under the alerts section. That is where all of our RFPs will be posted. We do not have the ability to send reminders to people individually. Unfortunately, that has been something that we've tried to figure out, and it has never worked. A lot of times because basically there's such high turnover in general in this industry and then in industry in general that we can never keep ahead of it. The other thing I really suggest is that people, that you also, if you have an account in iSupplier or E-Procurement, then you will, I think, get an alert every time a new RFP is issued, regardless of where it's from. Everything from the e-procurement system generally ends up in people's spam or trash or junk. So I suggest that if you are the person who might receive correspondence from the e-procurement system, that you routinely check your junk file or your spam drawer for alerts as well. And then in terms of the organizational structure of the youth division, I will kindly be quiet and let somebody else talk about that.
Helpful in our amendment to publish how that organizational structure looks. So we will do that.
It's also available online, and there's a short explanation in the RFP itself.
There is a short explanation.
The funding serving 30 of the same students all year, meaning does it have to be the same 30 youth being served for 288? What if the student leaves the program? Can we recruit another? Excellent clarifying question. So the goal here is to serve the same youth, but we understand that there is mobility. If at any point in the year agencies need to fill, if you lose a student or a youth, you should definitely put another youth in. Just to be clear, for the school year program, we would have to provide services in the school that the participant attends, and that would be no. You do not. Youth can come from different schools. So I think at this point, we're going to wrap up these questions. We will have time to answer questions at the end of the brief slides I'm going to go through that talk about how to actually make an application in e-procurement. I thank you. These are some great questions and have really keep us on our toes. So every person who wants to get a contract with the City of Chicago is going to need to interface or deal with in some way the e-procurement system. You do that as a vendor or potential vendor. You're going to do that by opening an account in iSupplier. So you're going to register into iSupplier. If you've never done business in iSupplier, I suggest that you get started on getting that account now. It sometimes takes a few days to get the application up and your account established. Remember, almost all of the correspondence that you receive from the iSupplier/e-procurement system is going to probably end up in your spam. It does for me, and I do nothing but work in the system. Well, I do a few more things, but I spend a lot of time in the system, and still I get all of my stuff from the system goes to spam as well. So it's just very, whatever email processing thing that makes decisions about what's spam will definitely think that this is spam, even if it's not. So I would get started on that. I often like to talk about the RFP process as, start early, save often is my mantra. We do not accept late applications, and I will say that for the next 3 slides. Our applications are due for this RFP will be due on July 26th at 12 o'clock noon. I really highly suggest to people, strongly suggest that you try to get in your application a day early. These will be big application pools, and while the system itself will not crash or even slow down for the hundreds of people who we think will be making applications for this RFP and the one we talked about earlier today, your ability to talk to an actual human being should you need to have a question or problem resolved will be compromised, because while there seems to be an infinite amount of bandwidth on the e-procurement system, there is a finite number of people who can help you. So with that being said, I would like to just suggest strongly that everybody give yourself plenty of time. If you are new to the system, practice submitting so that you know what to expect, you know how to resolve any issues, and that when it comes time to do the real thing, it goes as smoothly as possible. That being said, we're going to go through some slides where I show you how to accept an amendment, also and how to make a submission. So in terms of writing your application, review the RFP narrative. I know it's a dense document, but it is chock full of information and guidance about what we are looking for in terms of programmatic limitations or preferences. Understand that from the narrative, we directly develop our application questions. And from the questions and the narrative, we come up with the selection criteria. And from the selection criteria, we develop our evaluative instruments that we use to, quote unquote, grade your applications and make funding decisions. So if you find yourself having a problem or having a question about what way to pursue, what avenue to pursue in your programmatic model, look at the narrative, look at the RFP, look at the selection criteria and review that and let those things guide you. You can always reach out to Maria and ask her questions. You can reach out to me, because if you're having problems with e-procurement, you don't want to ask me programmatic questions, because I'll just tell you to please call Maria or reach out to her. When you're in the e-procurement environment, there's a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. And so each response, each question is allowed at 4,000 characters max, which is about 2/3 of a single-spaced page. The system will not count those 4,000 characters for you. And additionally, when you submit your application, you have no real way to ever access it again. So I strongly encourage people to write their applications in the word processing software of your choice, which will do the character counts for you, etc. And then drop it into e-procurement. That way you have a record of what you submitted, and you don't have to ask us for one, which has happened. Pro tip, do not use the back button on your browser when you are in the e-procurement environment. It will make e-procurement, will pretend that it's working and saving, but it will not be working and saving, and eventually you'll get an error message and be thrown out. And when you relog in, everything that you did will not be saved since the time that you used the back browser button. So in terms of working, other things that you need to know about organizations, if you're submitting more than one proposal, you will need to have make those proposal submissions with from an individual user account within your e-procurement or your vendor account. So you in your Acme company, you are making an application for this. If you want to make 3 applications, you are going to have 3 unique contact accounts, Ernie, Bert, and Big Bird. They can all have the same email address, and that will be the email address that everything gets thrown to, you'll get all your correspondence from the e-procurement system out of. Those can be the same, but they do need to have 3 unique names associated, one for each proposal if you're applying to the same RFP. If you're making 3 applications to 3 different, you're doing 1 school year, 1 summer, and 1 year round, that are 3 different RFPs. You can use the same account for all of those. It's just when you're doing multiple RFPs within this, multiple applications within the same RFP pool, that you need to use the different accounts. You can submit your application and later amend it up until the due date of July 26th. So if you get it in 3 days early and then realize that, oh no, you need to change an answer, you need to upload something else, you can in fact pull your application back and resubmit up until that July 26th 12 noon deadline. As I said, avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early, and plan on your submission taking 30 to 60 minutes. Almost everybody gets some kind of error message or another, and you just want to have enough time. As I said before, also, late applications will not be accepted. So now, if you are running into trouble about something, you should make use of the E-Procurement Hotline, or Helpline, like we like to call it, at 312-744-HELP or 4357. Please note that the hotline operates during business hours only, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. At the end of this PowerPoint presentation, we'll have my contact information and phone number, which is also in the RFP document. I tend to work less structured hours, and I have been known to answer my phone if I'm around. So you can call me whenever you choose, and if I am awake or get the phone call, I will pick up the phone and be happy to help you, walk you through whatever your problem you are having. Do note that the helpline does have a higher level of access on resolving some stuff than I do. So if it's something super complicated, I will probably be referring them to you, or you to them rather, but I'm as good a place to start as any, and I sometimes am easier to get a hold of. In terms of further technical assistance, as we talked about in the questions, if you are interested in finding out what other RFPs the department is putting out, look under the alert section of the DFSS website. If you are having any problems with question registration or e-procurement technical stuff, you can call the helpline. You can also email them at customersupport@cityofchicago.org. The helpline will generally call you back within 24 to 48 hours. Or if you're the kind of person that really doesn't want to talk to other human beings about this stuff at all, we have a lot of training materials at this website. There's videos, there's PowerPoints that you can look at with lots of screenshots, and those are just as good a place to start as any. I have a lot of those things on my desk here at work, so you can also email me if you have a question, if that's your preferred method of communication. So now we're going to talk about how to do 2 very common functions in the e-procurement environment, and these will be complete with screenshots. The first is how to accept an amendment. As we talked about earlier, we do amendments because as a way of communicating with our applicant pool about any changes or providing information. So all of the questions that we have asked today are going to be consolidated and answered into an amendment document, which will be posted in e-procurement. That document actually isn't available anywhere else but in e-procurement, so you'll have to start an application and look at it as an attachment. But before you actually can get started with your application, you have to accept the amendment, and this is the screens on how to do that. So if you're logging in first time and you just want to start an application, there's no amendment, you would go to this actions bar and go to create quote and click go. But if there is amendment, you'll get this warning saying this has been amended, and you're going to have to acknowledge the amendment before you can get back to your application. By acknowledging the amendment and accepting it, though, if you have started an application, it will pull all of your work into the new amended application, RFP. So you'll click on this View Amendment History on the left-hand side, and that will bring you to this screen where you are able to view the amendment history. You can see here in the middle bar here, there's an amendment description that basically is like a little one sentence about what you're looking for. If you want to review the changes in the amendment document, you can click on the Review Changes, this little eyeglass icon. If you want to review the whole kind of RFP packet and the amendment, you're going to click the document number. And when you are done with all of that, to acknowledge and acknowledge receipt and understanding of the changes, you're going to hit this Acknowledge Amendments button, at which point you are going to be thrown to this screen where you accept the terms and conditions of the RFQ and acknowledge the changes made to the RFQ document. You're going to click this tiny box, and then you are going to hit Acknowledge. And that will take you to this next screen. Click on Yes to indicate that you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment. So you're going to confirm, you're going to hit Yes, and then from there you are going to go to this final screen where you accept the terms and conditions. So you have to click another tiny box here. I have read and accept the terms and conditions, and then you are going to accept. And then from there, you will have achieved the acknowledgement and acceptance of your amendment, and you will be able to go on. And I wish I could give you $200, but that's not going to happen because this isn't monopoly. Now we're going to talk about how to submit an application. I see here is the question, is it possible to see other successful past applications? Ms. Slade, no, it is not. It is not possible to see other successful past applications. Your organization is not whoever was successful, and the program models do change. On the other hand, as I sort of have indicated, it's very difficult for even successful past applicants to see their own applications in this system, because once you hit submit, your application is sort of sucked away and you don't see it any longer. In fact, we've had people come to contracting and then they have to sheepishly ask for a copy of their application because they didn't save it themselves. But there is one workaround that we will be discussing now in the how to submit an application phase. So when you are ready to submit, you're going to start by saving your draft one last time, because why not? Saving things is good. Then you are going to click continue. At this point, E-Procurement is going to look through your entire application and kind of go for like low-hanging fruit that it thinks might be wrong. One of the things that it will almost always think is wrong is that you have not quoted on these lines. You'll see there's this lines tab right below the error message. I did a close up here just in case. To do that, almost everybody in DFS and a DFSS applicant is going to get these, because we do not require that you put your budget into this lines tab. This is something that comes into play later in the contracting process. We want you to upload a cost proposal or a budget to us as an attachment, but E-Procurement is going to be looking for the lines. They're going to be looking for that information, so it wants placeholder, or so you can put in placeholder numbers, your favorite number, your lottery number, the numbers of your budget, whatever you want. But to make this error message, we're going to have to go into this lines tab. You go out at least one line to make it go right. The other really common error message that we get is this kind of cryptic: a quote value is required for the requirement first name. In this case, quote value refers to answer. The requirement is E-Procurement speak for your application questions, and first name is the specific application question that it feels was not answered. And in this case, so I forgot to put in my first name. It says, hey, you didn't fill this out, and it's a required thing that to answer. We're going to give you an error message. So you go in, you find the requirement name that works for you, that has the error associated with it. You put in the answer, and you are good to go. So after you have gotten to be error-free, you are ready to proceed and submit. And at this point, when you click continue, your application will be put into this review and submit phase. At this point, you'll see that there's a save draft, there's a printable view. When you hit printable view, that will download actually all of your answers into a PDF form that would allow you to, so you will see, in fact, what you have submitted to us in terms of a list of your attachments. It's not going to print out the attachments for you, but it will provide you with a list of what you submitted, your attachments, your answers, all of that stuff, good stuff. And I highly recommend that you do that just for your own record, so you know what you submit. And then at this point, you can basically just scroll through your entire application, see all of the things that you need to see, do all the checking that you want to check. And when you get to the very bottom, you're going to provide us with an electronic signature, which you're going to do by filling out your name and then your title, and then clicking the box above your name and your title. If you do it in a different order, it will be an error message. And then I could not fit it onto the same screen, but if you go over to the right-hand side of the screen where the electronic signature is, there's a little submit button, and you click on that submit button, and you will have submitted your application. You will know that you have successfully submitted an application because you will get this confirmation screen. The confirmation screen is what you will see. You will get a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. Remember, it will go to your junk or spam drawer. And then if you want further confirmation, do not hesitate to call or email me, and I can tell you that we have received your application literally the second that it's received. I can see it, and I am more than happy to confirm that for you. I know that people work very hard on our applications, that it can be a little hair-raising, and I am more than happy to confirm that we have received your application if there is any doubt in your mind. I will say this: if you are, going close to the edge on the time, you're working, and all of a sudden your application just disappears, that is the application period closing. And E-Procurement is sucking away your incomplete application and you did not make the deadline. So if you're just working, and all of a sudden your application disappears, that is you missing the deadline. You have to go through all of these steps to make a submission. It's never anything less than this. So this concludes what I have to say about E-Procurement and making an application in the E-Procurement system. We can now open this up for additional questions if anybody has them. You can see here, if you have programmatic questions, please speak to Maria, who I suppose I should be calling, Dr. Guzman, since she did go and get a PhD. Or you can call me or email me for your non-programmatic questions. It has been a pleasure to spend my Friday afternoon with you all. And I cannot thank all of you enough for your interest in what I think is a very important program.
Thanks all for attending.
Yes. So, yes, if there are no other questions, then we will conclude this webinar. Please look for the amendment document with the questions. If you have other questions that you want to ask, send them to us so that we can include them in the amendment. And we look very much forward to reading your applications. This should be great fun. Take care.